Thank you so much. Thank you so much, our team. Welcome to the Commonwealth Business Women Network Film Night. I am Nana Wanjao, chairperson of the Commonwealth Business Women Network Kenya and the Cbwnk Region Lead Africa. Commonwealth Business Women Network Kenya. We are a ground partner of Commonwealth Business Women Network, Cbwnk, a registered community interest company in the UK. Cbwnk is an accredited organization recognized by 54 governments across 6 continents. We are committed to advancing UN Sustainable Development Goal number 5 and the Commonwealth Charter. Commonwealth Business Women Network is focused on women's leadership and economic empowerment. We have a mandate to get over 1 billion women in the Commonwealth to connect, collaborate, and do commerce. Our mission is to strengthen the Commonwealth, build businesses, and advance women through what we call our 3 T's: talent, training, and trade. Now, through our 3 T's, we encourage, enable, and embed women's economic empowerment. So you may ask, why women in the film industry? Why the creatives? And I will tell you why. Because, as you well know, film industry is big business everywhere. And Kenya, we are not yet there, but there is great potential. So it's in alignment with our mission to build businesses and advance women. In short, we want to increase the participation and progress of women in the creative industries. Increase the participation and progress of women in the creative industries, turning their art into profitable business. That's the reason we are here. Now, before we begin our session today, I would like to introduce Renee Gamau, who is our moderator tonight and beyond. Obviously, I'm not going to read her entire profile, otherwise our hour is going to go. Renee Gamau is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. Renee Gamau is a chairperson of Amnesty International Kenya. She is a member of Women in Media Network of the Gracia Machel Trust. She's a leadership coach, and she has helped me walk my journey for a very long time. She is an NLP master trainer and speaker. Besides that, because she's all that and much, much more, Renee Gamau to me and to many, many other women is a soul sister. Renee Gamau is in my war cabinet. Now, if you want to know what a war cabinet is, that's a whole different ball game. In Maya Angelou's words, Renee Gamau is 1 in my 10,000. Sisters like Renee Gamau in my life are the reason I'm able to stand tall. I celebrate you, and Renee, we are privileged and honored to have you here at Commonwealth Business Women Network Kenya as our moderator for our film night. Welcome, Renee.
Nana, thank you so very much, and thank you for the warm words. And welcome to everyone who is watching. Nana's revealed a secret that I thought a lot of people don't know, which is, yes, she is also part of my war cabinet and one of my soul sisters, and definitely in the single digits of my 10,000 women. And we all need those. And today I'm particularly excited about the movie and about being here, being with you and hosting this. When Nana invited me to watch this movie on Netflix, I'd sort of prevaricated. I've got to confess that I had kind of looked at it and then gone over it. And then I watched it and I just found that this I've just got to say, because I know that at some point Genevieve Naji is going to watch this. Wow, woman, what an amazing job you did. So listen, if you haven't watched the movie yet, block your ears now, because this is a moment of a spoiler alert. So the movie's generally about, well, it is about a young woman who's thrust into leadership of a family business in the midst of crisis, and it just unfolds crisis after crisis after crisis. And there's a number of themes that the story takes on, but I don't want to spoil it just yet for you, because I want to bring on to the forum one of my childhood friends, and a woman who herself is just such a powerhouse. She is not afraid of breaking molds. She's not afraid of following her heart, wherever that may lead. She's not afraid of speaking about vulnerabilities in her own life and how these have just unfolded and grown her as a human being. And yes, they did send me a bio, and perhaps we can share it. But what I love about Cynthia Otieno is that she takes what came out of her life and what unfolds in her life and uses it to make better other people's lives. She's a relationship and marriage coach. She works on transforming narratives that we have settled into, assumptions that we make, stereotypes that lead our stories, that navigate us through our past, and that try to help us manage our pain. What she comes in and does is just addresses those narratives and breaks them. Cynthia, it is such an honor to host you. Welcome.
Thank you, Renee. I love your introduction. You're so amazing. I was like, who's that? Beautiful. Thank you for having me here. Thank you, Nana.
It's such an honor. And we've got an hour to go, so of which 9 minutes are gone. And I know that this movie just has so much inside it. Listen, for everyone who is joining us and who is watching live, you've got chat. And if you're watching on Facebook Live, please go and make comments. We're going to be looking at them and just picking up on your questions. We might even invite you to make a comment and ask questions, or even read out what it is that you have by way of commentary. So feel absolutely free to just get into it. Now, I'm going to start off by asking the question, how many people have watched the movie? Right. Go on to, are you on Facebook Live? If you're on Facebook Live, then just quick click. If you don't know where to go and you do want to watch it on Facebook Live, it's Commonwealth Business Women Kenya. It's the Commonwealth Business Women Kenya page. And if you go to video, you will see the live stream on there. And the question is, the very first question is, have you watched the movie? If you have, hiya, comment fupi and let us know if you have. And if you are on the app, then of course in the chat. So Cynthia, there's a number of like sort of course, the huge theme in this movie, and it just hits you right at the start. Very African setting. I mean, you know, there's scenes in that movie that you can just remove and put in Nairobi, and you're like, I know that place. But the first thing that hits us is in the midst is number one, there's a scene where there seems to be a riot. We're introduced very instantly into conflict.
Yes.
At a transport station. But very soon thereafter into the crisis of a parent and the business driver of Lionheart Transport has a heart attack, and soon we find out, or it seems that he has a heart attack, and soon we find out that the company is in crisis. I know that you watched the movie. What hit you immediately at the point at which you find out that, as you're watching this movie, that they owe 950 million naira?
Right. I mean, I was watching this movie, and I felt that you can cut and paste it and put it in a very Kenyan scenario where there's a family that is running a business. They are They're looking into expansion, they're looking into growth, but it seems like though they have all the structures of a very professional business, you can see that it's being run from the living room per se, because there's some things that have not yet been discussed in the board, in the boardroom that is clearly being disclosed. So you find that there's a lot of crisis. It's exactly what we see in very typical African family business settings, where business is, very much within the dining table of every family. That's how we deal with things. So if 950 million naira has been taken as a loan, the guy is the one who's dealing with it. The board has no idea. So that throws the entire company into crisis. So that's one of the issues that really stands out at that point, is that what is this family going to do? Then the second thing is that the father, Chief is in trouble. He has been incapacitated at that point in time. What, in terms of succession planning, has been done to actually hand over the docket to the next of kin? Or so there's also that question that, as a viewer, that's the first thing you start to think about. You start to panic on their behalf, and you can see the riot is like, what, we haven't been paid, we haven't been taken care of. So you start to feel some kind of injustice that is going on between the haves and the have-nots. The have-nots are saying that, what, we haven't been paid, we haven't been taken care of, and you rich kids do not understand where we are coming from. That becomes another crisis. I love this movie because it throws us immediately into a panic attack. What is going to happen to these families? Yes.
It to that extent, I think you're right. It's panic attack right from the start. And hi, Cece, who's watching, and Irene Zawi, who has just joined in. Greetings to you in Uganda, Cece. How are you doing? And I want to go into this crisis a little bit more. Because I know that, obviously this is a circle for women in business. And very many times as women in business, we find ourselves either involved in a family business, drawn into a family business, either by virtue of marriage or by virtue of a parent who is sort of growing elderly and wants you to take on the business. And, or a business that you yourself start and begin to involve the family into. And there's a number of things that really struck me, and I want to just throw them out to you, which is, incidentally, we actually checked, my kids and I were watching this movie, and 950 million naira is 245 million shillings, Kenyan shillings.
Wow.
So, it's in
it's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money. You are in $2.5 million US dollars of debt, just like that. From heart attack to debt. And and one of the things that really struck me is this structure of this company. Think about it. How would you be able to take that level of debt without directors knowing? And what struck me about it is that there's something about the structure of this company that perhaps we can reflect upon the structure of our own companies and how we run them, and what exactly is the purpose of our boards. I know that you run a business yourself, and I don't want to put you on the carpet and ask you the structure of your board, but speak a little bit to the wisdom of having structure within your business.
One of the things that really came out on that movie is not only did they not have a very clear structure, but even defining the roles very effectively. Because what you'd find is that here is a family business, but daddy is the director and daughter is playing a significant role as well. But what happens in that kind of structure is that how do you then make daddy accountable as a director more than just daddy? Do you understand? So it's very important that when they create those structures, that the roles are so completely and clearly disclosed and clearly written out, that then there will not be any type of conflict that we are seeing out here. Because here he's not defined the structures, he's not defined and openly delegated, or professionally done it. So what happens is that there's a lack of professionalism that was really, really important in creating the structures that will safeguard the family from the business, because that's really important, that they can safeguard themselves from the insecurity that could come from this. That really stood out for me. And for me, thinking about it is, have they been able to communicate adequately as a family of what their roles would look like in between crisis and after crisis? That seemed to be lacking within that organization. You could also feel the tension. Immediately when the movie began, I thought the young man that, I don't remember his name, I thought the young man who was in the boardroom, Sam. I thought he was the brother of Ade, what was her name? Adeze. Adeze. I first thought he was a brother, and I could feel there was some rivalry between these two, because he probably felt he was more qualified to sit in that position. He probably felt that he is more deserving of the position, maybe because he's a male, or maybe because he's more qualified. So you could tell that because there were no clear structures, very well defined, very well demarcated, that creates can create anonymity within your board that causes negative competition. So that, for me, when we're talking about structures, it's very important that that is created in the business, that protects you and helps you to succeed as you build a family business.
I love that how raw this was. And Nana, I want to sort of draw you in for a bit. I know that that you two not only run a business but a charity, and you're very involved. But something that was very raw in this conversation was just the reality of being in a cartel-based or a cartel-heavy business niche, which is transport. We know that everywhere in the world, transport is very tightly controlled by a number of people who will have put themselves into that business and elbowed their way into getting their roots. And also a very male dominated business. And one of the things that really struck me was the navigation of femininity within this very masculine space. And we see it a number of times when, she almost has to withdraw to allow her uncle. She's even considers herself needing to sort of take a back seat so that her uncle can speak to the family or to their potential their potential merger. And, he's the one saying, no, go out there. Speak a little bit, if you would, Nana, to how you retain your femininity in a business that is demanding that we be masculine. Well, that is almost demanding in its sense that we be masculine.
I'm not sure if anybody demands we be masculine. I think I learned a long time ago that in some of these circles or boards, if you're feminine, then you are too emotional. If you are masculine, then you are aggressive. You are, you can't function either way. So I think the best thing for us women is, first of all, to realize that our femininity is our power and our strength, and we must be female. We must be women. We must use who we are to navigate these different male-dominated cartels. But let me go back a little bit, because I liked the beginning of the movie when the strike, the one you said it could be Kenya, if you removed anything and you just asked somebody, where is this? It could be in down street Nairobi, or in area. It could just be an industrial area. What I was sort of very impressed by Genevieve, that's her name? Genevieve?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes. When the strike was taking place and she came in, she actually diffused the situation. And that for me was like, I was very impressed that she was able to step into that chaos, bravely. Did you see the young man Sam pass behind and just smile, and didn't get involved? He just went straight to the boardroom, the meeting, and left her to deal with this chaotic situation by herself. Immediately, for me, that said quite a lot. I began to look at Sam with a lot of suspicion. I expected that guy. In fact, I was surprised to see him in the boardroom. I thought, you left chaos outside and you came to sit and you left this young lady fighting those hooligans with machete and pangas and everything, and you just came and sat here. So immediately I realized there's trouble with this young man, whoever he is. But he was able to diffuse that situation. And for me, immediately I realized this young lady has some power. She's got potential. So when the father, got ill, and now she began to navigate that space with an uncle, with this young man, Sam, who obviously believes that she is there by virtue of being the daughter of the boss. To me, I was so sure that she can navigate this space because I had already seen that fire in her, that fight in her. But I knew she's going to go through a lot of hell before she actually, goes through. And you answering your question, Renee, how do we navigate? I would say, using even Genevieve's character, that in leadership, whether you're a business owner, an entrepreneur, or you're employed in a C-suite, Genevieve experienced all the emotions that come with being in that space. She was focused, she was determined, she was resilient. However, in that same space, she did also experience frustration, anger, resentment sometimes, betrayal from within, fear. And she stood her ground. She stood her ground. And for me, in terms of the Cartels, she was able to use what she had, who she is as a woman. She had put in 10 years into being mentored by or watching her father, despite everything not being perfect, obviously, because somebody was able to go, the dad was able to withdraw $2.5 million without the board. But she was in that for 10 years. So she must have learned something. She also used her uncle, and she also used her mother, and she was aware of the rivalry she had in the boardroom. I think she really played her game very well, using her strength, her inner strength, to navigate all the challenges. Back to you, Renee.
I want to come back to that, actually. And Grace, I love what you've said. And hi, Grace, when you've said, excuse me, our femininity is our strength. And we've got to absolutely remember that. But there's some sub-themes which I want us to come back to, which are rather quite interesting, and which, when they play out in real life, are the thing that my soul sister says very often are our unspoken truths. And this is the moment when she lands in jail. The moments, the uglier moments. And ladies and gentlemen who are watching, let's tell a bit of the truth. That it's not all rosy and, power and inner strength and self-composed. If you're in business long enough, we know that there are moments that are really quite ugly. The moment when, the bank manager says, in response to the question, name your price, he says, well, your niece is looking mighty fine. That's my price. You know, the moment when, God bless the uncle, in defense of his, you know, niece swings at this bank manager and they land in jail. And we know, I mean, I don't know about in Uganda, and maybe Sissy, you can tell us, but in Kenya, if you bounce a check, you might end up in jail. We know that very many times there have been decisions, particularly in this COVID period, when people have found themselves in a place where they're making a decision, not based on their values, but based on the urgency and the desperation of the situation, and have made choices that are not necessarily choices that reflect who they believe themselves to be. The moment when, obviously, this friend of hers, which was a personal favorite moment because I really love P Square, so I was like, you know, he says, I'll give you 500. I'm going to put the money together, but let's have a drink. And you know, you can kind of see where that is leading. Cynthia, I don't want to ask how do we maintain our moral sort of north in the compass, because sometimes we will and sometimes we won't. The question, I think, is how do we recover and return to that true north when in those moments when we have fallen, when we have said yes to the 500 naira and what came with it, or yes to the bank manager, or we've been to jail. How do we recover it? I know this is an expert area of yours.
Yes. Let me tell you, the good book says that a man falls 7 times and then he gets up. It's not in the falling, but it's in the purposeful, intentional focus of getting up and realizing that I fail. And one of the things that I really like talking about is, if you are without sin, cast the first stone. It's very important for us to recognize that we have moments of weakness. If, of course, we do not advocate for blanket open moments of weakness, then we can then repent. But it's actually coming to the recognition that just because I have fallen, that I cannot get back up again. Here is a moment of weakness. This is a moment that the uncle has a rage and anger, and he lashes out at the bank manager without really thinking about self-control and whatever it is. And we can go into, was he right or was it wrong or whatever. But the thing here is, at the end of the day, this business owner who has had a crisis of character is, at the face of adversity, our character is going to be tested. Our character is going to be put on a weighing scale. Now, we're going to either make up our minds to decide if that weighing scale is going to become what is going to define us for the rest of our lives, that weighing scale becomes what I'm going to succumb myself to that label, or am I going to say this was a season? You know, there's a difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. The growth mindset says, yes, I failed, but I have gotten up again. These are the 3 lessons I learned. These are the 3 things I will take from that lesson in 2020. And believe you me, 2021, I will do it differently. Because the things that made me fall last season are the things that are going to become my stepping stone to my next season of greatness. You see, the thing that would be the greatest adversity in life is never learn from your mistakes. Oh my goodness. That would be the worst thing you can ever do to yourself. I have had moments of weakness, moments of failure, but guess what? I take a piece of paper and I write, hiya, what did I learn here? What are the things that I have learned about my character? What are the things that I have learned about myself and my struggle as a woman in my mid-40s? What am I learning? And guess what? Who are the people I now need to put around me that becomes a shield of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding? And let me tell you something, as women in business, If we do, I like what Nana said earlier when she said about her circle. And I said, woo, that is beautiful. Because you know what, Nana, you must have learned from your previous season to realize to get the right people around you. You see, it's only when we have had adversity, when we have had failure or a struggle, let me put it as struggle, will we know, my next season requires this kind of knowledge, this kind of woman in my next season. Let's rally together and do that. But you know what happens? Sometimes we wallow in a season of, oh yeah, you know, that cop or that thing did this. Oh yeah, look at me, Renee. You know, no. Let's speak up. Let's dust off the dust and let's get ourselves together. You know, there's something I read earlier today is that without a struggle, success has no value. Success has no value without a struggle. Every time I sense a struggle, I know beyond a shadow of doubt, ooh, value is coming. So do not look at the struggle and stay in the mud. Start to look for the value in the mud. That's what I would say.
Let me add something. Cynthia triggered something. Sometimes there is shame in our fall. However, yes, we must learn, obviously, from our fall. But I think more even powerful is allowing ourselves to be vulnerable enough to share our fallen moments. Because that is very, very powerful. And I will tell you why. This one time, my mother, who lived in Lusaka, she's now the late, but she lived in Lusaka, and she was a foreigner, and she needed to renew her work permit. And she picked me from school, and we passed through this office where these things were being done. I was in high school, and I waited in the car, and she came back fuming, like throwing the papers in the back of the seat and saying, Nana, listen to me. People, okay, at that point she said, people generally will try and use you and abuse you, chew you and throw you out. I didn't understand what she meant. Later on, I got to, sit with her, and she told me exactly how this official said, name your price, and my price is you. Now, because she shared that with me, it became my power pillar that these kind of things can happen to, even if they can happen to my mother, a powerful, educated woman like that, it can happen to me and anybody else. My mother had to go all the way to the presidential office to get her permit renewed. So sometimes it's important to share the moments that we are ashamed of, because they're going to empower another human being. And by the way, this can happen vice versa. It doesn't just happen to women. It happens to men as well. Thank you.
Just, if you're watching this after it's gone live, just pause, write down the notes, because you can hear the nuggets of wisdom here. And I mean, you're talking about this, and I'm also thinking through, my own experiences. Anyone who has lived life long enough, you live life a little bit, and life will come back and will give you those moments of not just reflection, but of real testing. And I don't think that there's anyone, even you who's watching, you definitely know that there's been times when the exit, the cost of the exit is your integrity, is your values, is what you hold dear. And in that moment, you've got to make a choice. And the point, almost after the choice has been made, and whatever the consequence is, you've got to be able not to second guess yourself. And that's, I think for me, that has been my biggest lesson in life, is that in the moment, whatever decision I made, I believe that was the decision, that was the best decision I could take at that time with the information, the knowledge, the experience, the power, the energy, and the options that I felt I had. Hindsight is always 20/20 vision, because we've got very many things to say, because we have now become the woman that we are, because the woman that we were allowed us to do or to go through the experience we've had. So there is no version of me looking back at the Renee that happened before and saying, you know, what I should have done is, I had no capacity to know that then. The only reason I have the power and the ability to say so now is because that Renee allowed herself to make the choice that she made so that she could have the experience that she had, that gave her the feedback that she has, that tells her either this works or it doesn't work. The end. And the woman who speaks today, yes, has paid the price for the choice that was made yesterday, whatever that price is, good or bad.
That's right.
But it's no longer
That's
that woman.
right.
So you don't need to be taking me back there, because that woman is the woman who was. This woman is the one who is. And I love
That's right.
that theme comes out so powerfully. Because like you said, Nana, you know, there are moments when we will give up. You know, you see her curling up in bed and just deciding,
Yeah.
I'm not going to work. And it takes her mother marching.
I've had many of those.
You know,
I've had many of those. But that's the reason I have my 10,000s. These are the people who get you out of bed.
But do you realize, ladies, I took a note of what the mother said, because I struggled with what the mom said. She said, do away with the sentiments and emotions and get the job done. It's like, you know what, as a woman, we are not technically allowed to feel the emotion. I do not know if a man would have gone through that. So I found that very interesting. Mom has learned her lesson. And she's saying, let me pass on this wisdom of that sentiments and emotions as a woman won't get you anywhere if you want to take over this company. Because mom has a strategy. Mom has a plan. You know, she has already planned this child's life. They have a plan for her life, you know. So she says, do away with the sentiments and the emotions. You know, she did. She just did not hold her and say, yeah, well, yeah, you know, yeah, that is true. You should even sleep. I'll make you cake. She told her, do away with the sentiments and emotions. Get the job done. You know, and I find that sometimes we need that. We need the critic in our lives. You know, like what Nana and you, Renee, are saying is that, you know what, sometimes we need that person who will, you know, slap us behind and tell us, get up, because this is your position. And if you don't take it, somebody else, even more qualified, okay, will take it. And they will feel they own it. So I really find it very interesting. I struggled in the beginning with mom's words because it really cut too close to me. It cut very close because I had a very strong mother, a very strong choleric mother who wasn't for feeling sorry for yourself. So it took me back, but I realized that that's why I'm here. That's why I'm still standing, is because she said, get the job done. Once you're done crying, once you're done, whatever it is, get the job done. Somebody has got to do the job, and it is you.
In fact, that's great, because it brings us directly to the dining table and the luncheon that they're having with uncle and auntie and the son and the entire family. And that's sort of, in a very short way, I felt that the film didn't really develop that. But in a very short period of time, they sort of cut across all of these different sub-themes that are very important at dinner tables. You know, the theme of marriage and when do you get married? Who do you get married to? How do you pick a marriage partner? Should you? And also the issue of, we see the role of the traditional expected role of children changed over, where now it is not, we're not questioning the daughter and whether she should be sitting on the board. We're questioning the choice of the son to pursue his passion in music. And you can see them, you know, you can see the ribbing that, you know, parents sometimes do. You know, it's like, oh, is that what you really chose? You know, you do realize that you're Igbo, don't you? Which looks funny, But we all know when we're sat at the dinner table, it's that thing of trying to just like quickly whip you round, and to get assent and other people to agree with your view that this choice that this person has made is the wrong choice. Speak a little bit, and I'm going to ask you to put your marriage counselor hat on the price of success for women, which is this conversation of if you see a man coming to ask you for marriage, and also on the price for men for choosing to pursue their passion over what they're expected to do by their families. Cynthia.
All right. Oh, okay. I lost you a bit. What was the last part of the price of?
So the price, number one, the price of success for women, especially business success and financial success. And number two, the price on men for choosing to pursue their passion instead of choosing to pursue profit or what is expected of them.
Beautiful. It's very interesting that this is a very modern family. It seems that they're very modern because they have a very subtle conversation that is very tongue-in-cheek kind of conversation, but you can tell there's no tension as to why the son is pursuing music and the eldest daughter is basically the successor in line in terms of succeeding in the company. So you can tell this is a very modern Nigerian family or African family, because in total honesty, that typically would not happen, especially if she's an unmarried young woman who is typically going to, according to our African culture, is that if she gets married, she's going to go to the other family. So what happens to our business? It's going to the other family. So you can tell that this family is pretty modern. But you also understand that at this table, the families are very open. They're open to negotiate and speak they have very clear disclosure lines. This is an auntie and an uncle, but they can speak into her issues of being single or not and passion and in this family. So you can tell that even the boundary markers as a family is extended. The extended family now understands everything that is going on. So this table is a table of negotiation. It's a table of understanding. It's a table that they clearly disclosed to everyone, which is very interesting, because you'd find that a lot of families would want to safeguard it to the nuclear family. The second thing is now the question on success for women. You'd find that we have, as far as how we socialize our young girls and our young women, is that we want them, yes, to finish school and get a very good job, but at the same time we also want them to get good homes and set them up into good homes. So there's that pressure. You can tell that uncle is trying to say, okay, yeah, we want to prepare you for this position, but at the same time we would like to make sure that you're settled down. So success is important to this family. But I was left with the question, is success marriage? Is she successful according to this African family? Or is success when she's going to be married and settled? Because that's usually what the nuance is in an African family. And that's what I could feel from that table, is that yes, she's successful. She has worked for the company for 10 years. They have over 200 buses. They service over 50,000 people a week. That's a successful organization that she has been overseeing. But in all, at the end of the day, they're not celebrating that per se and saying that, you know what, we're going to reward you right now because you know what, you have been traversing the country and doing these major things. The first question she's asked, hey, you've grown thin. You've grown thin. Why aren't you eating? You see, it's basically taken down to, you're still a girl, you're still a woman, we want to take care of you, would like to fatten you, because that's on the back of their mind. Maybe that's why you haven't found a husband. If you had fattened up a little bit, you would probably have enough carbs. Then the man, the young man, and he's a young man. I felt that for him, he's that child that is, I would ask myself, was he the problem child? Was he the child who has been put on the back burner? At least he's doing something. He's not in drugs, he's not, doing aracas. So as long as he's doing music, and the father is wondering, hip hop, what is that? So you could tell they don't totally understand. They have not even investigated what he really does. They have not entered his world, or they have chosen not to. So you can tell the tension between the young man, and you can tell he did not take much of the conversation. So you can tell that this story has really taken a very postmodern setting. And brings up a lot of conversation for us as Africans, especially our African parents. They threw us into the deep end, and they threw the parents in the deep end in succession, and showing that a girl can actually be successful. They can run a family business. They can be single and be okay and still be able to succeed. And the boy he doesn't have to be the business owner. He doesn't have to run around and be the core director just because he's a son. They made this sound okay. They gave us permission to even dream as women. And that for me was fabulous.
I think we move on in the movie, and there's something really striking, which is they've come to the end.
Oh, I think we have lost our moderator. Cynthia, it's you and I. By the way, as she figures herself out and coming back, there's something, she asked, success is what do we pay for success? Everything has a price, and success is different for different people. Success could be money, success could be good health, great family, so success is varied, as we are, globally. Success has a price. Whatever your success is, it has a price. So for me, it is, what are you willing to pay? What are you willing to pay? Because if it is everything, you could lose everything. You could lose everything.
Yeah.
So you have to ask yourself, what
failure has a price too.
Yes. But we went on without you. We saw you took a break.
Yes. My clearly something took a break here, but I think this is it's you sit back, and this is one of those movies which you watch and then you really, really think about your life. I love the bit where the father chief says, he calls her after dinner and he says, I've been, when a time comes, I'm paraphrasing, obviously, a time comes in a man's life when he really looks at what's very important and realizes that he may have spent his life on the things that weren't the most important. And it was just such a fantastic reflective moment that I think is such an overarching theme of the movie, this opportunity to look into these different aspects and ask ourselves, what am I pursuing and what is the most important? But it then swiftly takes us to another moment, which was just such an African moment, when they've come to the end of all of their thinking, and she's done this interview with the buses, with the bus drivers, and they've told her their problems, and she's thinking about it, and the uncle comes back and just subtly says, would you now consider the idea that I had? And he comes up with a proverb, and I just thought that was so cute, because you can see your uncle sort of coming up with, ukitaka cha mvunguni, or some like wise words, the early bird and the worm. And I just thought that was just so cool. He sort of goes, if you want to remove the big log, first take off the log on top of it. But they decide that they're going to talk to their father. And he raises another thing, which is sometimes another unspoken for us, which is the issue of the lens with which we see ourselves in the spaces of ethnicity. And it's brilliant because his first reaction is not to the business value of this proposition.
Yes.
It is to the question of him as a Southeastern Igbo Nigerian having to enter into any kind of business with a Northern Muslim Hausa. And immediately, you know, he sort of raises that, like, Hausa, and they've almost got to downplay the Hausa-ness, quote unquote, by saying, you know, it's only business. Obviously, Cynthia, you know, without you can't underscore it more. You carry the names Wamboy Otieno. I'm sure you're the only person who, when you introduce yourself, the conversation immediately goes left.
Yes.
This consistent and constant lens of seeing one another, not for the value of who we are, but the labels that we carry that blind others from who we are, and instead all they're focused on is what we represent to them.
True. And I think that the
challenge
biggest
that
thing...
someone, and I'm going to put you straight to the carpet. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. I thought you had stopped.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No.
You were saying you were going to put me on the spot.
No, go ahead.
All right. One of the things that I have come to realize
on the
is
spot
that
personally, because you are one boy and then you're Otieno.
and you realize that when I realized that I was going to marry an Otieno and I'm our boy, I want to tell you that even in my own family, my own mother was like, what? He's actually Otieno. Do you remember what happened? You know, so I leave the reality of a story that happened in the 80s. And so every day, as I do ministry, as I speak, wherever I speak, I represent a past, a pain, a situation, a dilemma. Okay. And so it's very important that that came out in this movie, where you find that what is the history between the Igbos and the Hausas? Because you will find that those are the same conversations that we're having between the significant tribes in this country, that you find when you come to do business with a Kikuyu and you're from the opposite tribe, you will say, no, we don't do business with them. We do not want to invest in a very Kikuyu dominated or this particular area, because we do not know what will happen. Remember, post-election violence happened in 2007. There are many things that have happened over the years that has really affected us as a people. So I love the fact that they sneaked it into the movie, and it is also a great conversation, because even as we are doing businesses, you'll find that people center their businesses based on where demographically and geographically is going to be neutral, is going to not affect their deals and mergers. You understand? And once for example, if I go into a certain area, I remember a little old lady, I was doing a wedding, I was officiating a wedding in one of the areas in Nairobi. She was a little beautiful old lady, about 80s. And she looked at me and she spoke to me in vernacular, and she told me, why did you betray us in this manner? And for her, it was a very painful conversation. And she said, and she looks at me and she says, Pastor, you betrayed us. Is there not a Kikuyu man you could have found? But you know what? I did not rise up in defense, but I knew that's her experience. You know, the thing that we spoke about earlier, it's important that we address people's experiences, their fears, their insecurities. Let them begin. Let's create platforms like that dinner table where we can actually talk of our fears, our stereotypes, and can we actually allow it to happen and begin to heal? And so one of the things that I really like, Renee, from a very personal standpoint, is that I like my name because it's a conversation starter. Everywhere I've gone, you'll find that I will put Cynthia Otieno. If you put Cynthia Otieno, I will have it edited. You know why? Because I want it to provoke an emotion. I want it to provoke a conversation, and then we can take it on. Because I feel change has got to start with me. As I sit next to you in the bus, I sit next to you in the matatu, and we exchange a business card. This is how transformation happens. This is how impact happens. Purpose is why you are put here on earth. I was put here on earth to actually be a narrative changer. And so how do we then continue propagating and transferring information and wisdom? That's how we do it. And so we find that in this movie, that came out very strongly. You see, by the end of it, they connected. The two old men connected. He went to school in Hausaland. You see him talking Hausa, and they start connecting about the kicks and this, I think the sodas they would take, because that's a very, it sounded like the way you would go to Shags and have tarino and those ngumus, kangumus, you know, if you're from Kenya. And so you find they connected with something so silly and they laughed about it and they shook hands. Sometimes it's we have to look at our points of convergence in the midst of our differences. Always look for the points where we can actually converge. Yes.
I love that. Points of convergence in the midst of our differences. And perhaps we realize that we don't have that many differences, that we're actually all in pursuit of the best life that we can make. All right. Final moments. I want to give each of you 30 seconds to tell us your favorite part of the movie. Nana, go. Sorry. I've got a bit of a delay.
I think I'll take my 30 seconds. I wanted to say something very powerful. In business, even when we are putting our teams together or our boards together, we look for that diversity, that which is different from each one of us. And it is in that conversion where we converge with all our diverseness that the power is realized. So thank you so much, Cynthia, that your name provokes conversation. But as we end, because I know we've run out of time, I want to actually say that we must embrace and encourage our differences. And for me, what you see when somebody says we are divided by age, by race, by gender, tribe, even nationalities and color, I always say to myself that I don't know your story. You know, we are all defined by our experiences and, the past, who we are, where we were raised, and so on. So what you say is your story, your experience. That's who you are. And that's why we say, let's not judge, because I've not walked your walk. I've only walked my walk. So what's important for me is to know who I am. Because no matter what you say, it will never change who I am. Therefore, I can excuse, I can forgive, I can ignore your opinion because I know who I am. In my closing remarks, Renee, is our diversity is our greatest strength, and we must deliberately look for that, create that, harness that, because it is where our differences merge, where they intersect is where our power lies. Is Renee still with us, or she has paused?
Fantastic. Cynthia, probably in 30 seconds.
The thing that I would be my parting shot is one of the things that at the crossroads or the valley of decision, many of us are right now during COVID in the valley of decision making. We are currently on our crossroads, and the crossroads is where we are trying to make certain business decisions, trying to make some certain family decisions. And one of the things that really stands out for me as a woman, as a business owner, as a Kenyan, is to understand that there will come a time in life where every person, every woman, every man has to make a stand at their crossroads. You have to make a stand. And at that stand is where history is going to be made. And how history is going to be made is by the choices you make at that crossroads. It will lead you to where you're supposed to go. So let that, during this season that we are in, at the valley of decision, at the valley of your crossroads, that your choices and your decisions are going to be determined by a greater being. Let God be at the center of your crossroads. And let me tell you something, success is inevitable. Success is where your future lies, and that is how history is made.
Oh, fantastic. What a wonderful, wonderful way to close. Listen, thank you ever so much, Cynthia Otieno, relationship and marriage coach, woman of great wisdom, definitely a narrative changer. I asked Cynthia earlier, when we had a bit of a conversation earlier, and she just had so many nuggets of wisdom. I think my parting shot is what hers was, which is we are the sum total of the decisions we take, the words that we use upon others as though that they would not come back to ourselves, and thinking that we engage in when we confront an issue. And when we elevate our thinking, our words, and the sum total of the decisions that we make, we elevate not just lives for ourselves, but the lives of all those people who surround us, in the same way that in the first scene, she is surrounded by the lives of all these people who she says, why are you stopping them from going on? Listen, thank you so much for joining us, and for everyone who's going to be watching after this live. This live conversation has been put up on Facebook. Thank you for coming to the page. We want to know what movies you want us to dissect next. Let's create a movie night. It happens once every 2 weeks, I believe. And the movies are all about, something that can take us somewhere, that can open up our minds, that can cause us to think differently. Also, if you've got guests that you have in mind, people who you would love to hear from, don't worry whether or not you know them. It will be Nana and team's job. Let me throw them under the bus. It will be Nana and team's job to find these people so that we can have them on the group and really have those conversations that matter. So thank you ever so much.